Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like for a festival of media, we've not had enough confusing charts over the last few presentations. So I'm here to change all of that. Very briefly, for those of you who don't know who the WFA is, we represent advertisers. So our membership is made up of 55 national advertiser associations, as you see here, including ISBA in the UK, UDIA in France, ANA in the US, ABA in Brazil, the list goes on. And we're also proud to count 70 of the world's largest multinationals in our membership. And many of those companies take part in our peer-to-peer groups, one of which is called the Media Committee. And you're going to hear today from 3 global media directors who sit on that Media Committee. And it's our members who really asked us to raise this issue with you here today and raise the profile of transparency concerns at an industry level. So we're really here to start that conversation. And as was just shared, we sat down with our friends at the Festival of Media and we conducted some research. And we had 70 responses, a mix of agency leaders, and thank you very much for those of you who did take part, and also global media directors, much as those who you're going to see on the panel today. And the first question we asked was, what was the biggest issue in relation to media transparency today? And as you'd imagine, there were many responses that came back. But I think really 3 areas broadly that came out. The first are rebates, AVBs. They have lots of different names, but let's call them rebates for the sake of today's discussion. The second is measurement. So not just media audience measurement, but also in terms of verification of delivery. I'm thinking of ad serving. And the final one, which I think was described yesterday as a bit of a red herring, was a trading desk, so newer, if you like, to this debate. And we're going to touch on all of those areas when we have our discussion afterwards. So I'm just going to take 3 minutes to give you a bit of context in terms of the findings that we had back from that research. And the first question that we asked really demonstrates that there's plenty of common ground, obviously. It would be bizarre if there weren't. But the first statement we asked, you see on the bottom, is advertisers have the right to know the actual costs charged by media owners to third parties, i.e. their agencies. So as you can see here, the red line, advertisers, funnily enough, 100% agreeing with that, and the vast majority of agencies saying, yeah, absolutely, that's the case. So 92% responding and saying, yes, they agreed. But a slightly more contentious statement that we put out for them to, for our respondents to come back to us on were, agency fees fall as agency profits rise, and this demonstrates that agencies and media owners are being less transparent. Now, obviously our first disconnect that we see in terms of 88% of the advertisers saying they agreed with that statement, and 17% of agencies saying they agreed. Now just to clarify, none of our members that I'm aware of have any issues with agencies making a profit, quite the opposite. They're very keen to see their agency partners succeed in this space. But I think this sort of disconnect really warrants a discussion and more clarity in terms of where the remuneration's coming from. And in part, I think that takes us back to AVBs and rebates. And here you see what we call our heat map, which we prepared for our members. And this is just Europe, we did it globally. But it's just really an opportunity to sort of say, where do your peers feel that rebates are highest around the world? But obviously the level of rebates are not the issue that we're facing. None of our members, again, I think, have any issue with rebates. The problem comes down to the hidden rebates and the ones that actually aren't made clear and open with the advertiser, with the agency's clients. But on the flip side of that discussion, again, and the third statement you see on the far right, and this was touched on again yesterday, a real sort of common ground on a lot of agencies and advertisers agreeing that the squeeze on remuneration is actually having a detrimental impact on innovation. So it's actually having a negative impact on the work that's being conducted between partners. So absolutely, that's something we're both agreeing, that perhaps our clients are pushing too hard. But then again, we're going to focus on the disconnects a bit more today in the discussion to start with the panel. And the final one, which I think is the biggest margin of gap, if you like, between the 2 parties who took part, where agency trading desks are a threat to transparency. Only 8% of agencies agreed with that statement, whereas 84% of advertisers did. Now, as I said, it was referred to yesterday as a red herring, but I think that sort of gap really warrants more clarity. And the final, penultimate point I'm just going to make is actually, this isn't to say that WFA members and advertisers in general do not see the opportunity in trading desks and DSPs. Not at all. The majority of our members we know are using trading desk and they see absolutely the opportunity within them. But there's a sizable group, and in this one we're saying 33% saying actually we're not using them. And when we asked, we said, why? Why are you not using those trading desks? I think their responses are pretty self-evident. It's transparency and it's about conflict of interest. And really there needs to be more clarity, more education, more understanding in this area. So those are the broad areas, and I'm going to leave you with perhaps a bit more of a conciliatory or collaborative approach, if you like. The final question that we asked was, who do you feel should do more to improve transparency in media? And obviously it's not just the agencies who kindly took part in this survey or the advertisers, it's also the media owners, the media auditors who are party to this whole discussion. And I think rather encouragingly, as with any of the best work that comes between clients and their agency partners, the biggest chunk of both parties basically saying this needs to be a team effort, this needs to be something we need to work on together. And that's really the purpose of the panel. And thanks again to the 3 WFA members who agreed to sit on this panel, is really just to start that discussion. So I'm going to hand over now to Sonoo Singh. He's the editor of M&M Global. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, for your presentation and for sharing the results of the WFA research. Good morning, everyone. You'll have to bear with the voice because I've got festivalitis, I think, this morning, as do the rest of you, I suppose. While the Festival of Media has been discussing and sharing some great ideas, talking about new products, new technologies, and use of more data, cross-platform measurement and integration, all of which is disrupting the status quo of our media ecosystem. Many of you, obviously agencies, have been coming up to me and saying, it seems a bit strange, a bit odd that transparency still remains a key issue for advertisers. But as Rob just showed in his presentation, that for most brand owners, media rebates remain the biggest stumbling block to full transparency. And that's why we're here with 3 global brands to discuss the issue. Let me start by introducing the panel. All these panelists, they are poachers turned gamekeepers, so this should be fun. Start with Tom, the Heineken Global Media Manager responsible for agency relations at the recently formed Global Commerce University in Heineken's head office, Amsterdam. I have Ben Jankowski, Group Head Global Media MasterCard, responsible for managing the MasterCard investment in marketing communications, and Ian Hutchinson, Chairman of the WFA Media Committee, whom most of you would recognize from his Record Banquisa days. He has recently started in his new role as Sony Mobile. But before we start, there are some house rules. It's because a lot of agencies have been interacting with me on this issue for the past few days. What I would like to suggest is that we have some sort of audience participation. We do have mics in the auditorium, and what I would like you to do is put your hands up during our conversation here, and we will take questions. And we have some Twitter feeds as well, so I will take some questions from those of you who don't want to stand up and ask the question. Let's first grapple the issue here. Let's start with asking ourselves the question, what it is that we're talking about. It is almost like the trust you had once in your spouse, which has been ruptured. You, the clients, want to save the marriage, yet you don't know how to find a way to trust your partner. And your partner, your media agency in this case, they don't know how to make you believe what they're saying, and you keep waiting to know that your spouse is being honest and therefore transparent with you. But neither of you probably want the breakdown of the marriage. Is this fundamentally the issue we're talking about, a breakdown of trust and clients not finding a way to mend that rupture? What is the problem here? Shall we start with you, Tom?
I wouldn't characterize it like that, actually. I think this is a commercial relationship. It's not a family relationship with unconditional love. You know, it's a commercial relationship. I think the canon should still be trust. And for me, transparency is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. It's a means to trust. It's an enabler of trust. For me, there are 2 specific conditions, if you like, that transparency can address. One is it looks to reveal income streams that the agency is making. That's very important to my purchasing colleagues. We want to know that we've agreed a sum that works for the agency, that rewards them well, but we want to ensure that that's what they're earning and not significantly more. So there's an income stream piece. There's also the potential for hidden income streams to compromise neutrality, and that's what is even more scary. If I'm going to see a doctor about a life-threatening condition, I want to know he's giving me the best treatment to solve that condition, not the one that might give him the best margin, or because his friend's a radiographer or whatever. So those are the two strands, if you like, that transparency can address. But the bigger issue is to try and have mutual objectives. That's when you can work together. If you're trying to achieve the same thing, then transparency can become an enabler to high performance rather than a deterrent to petty pilfering or whatever.
What about you, Ben?
No,
How do you see the issue?
Sorry. I think that some of the things that we've talked about for 2 days, I mean, the exciting part of our business of how there's never been a better time for media agencies because it fills a gap that we certainly need. And all the changes in the marketplace, technology, data, we talk about data. And I think that right now we've spent a lot of time, there are a lot of people a lot of marketers who think that data has been used in the case of trading desks and things like that, kind of at a disadvantage. So I think that there's a huge opportunity for us to grow and spend a lot of time growing our business and doing cool, innovative things, which we all want. But also one of the themes yesterday, and somebody mentioned on the CEO panel, trust. And I think when you look at some of the data that Rob showed in the charts, when you talk about when you have such a big gap between agency and advertisers' perceptions of whether transparency is an issue, and whether agency profits are are a deterrent to business. It's difficult when you look at agency profits. The average holding company profit growth last year was something like 30%. Now, any marketer out there going to raise their hand and say they grew their profits 30% last year? There probably aren't many. So it's difficult. It's difficult for us to look at that model and say, that we really need to find, some middle ground. And there's a lot of solutions. We agencies and advertisers need to find a way to kind of come together. There are solutions. There's third-party auditing, which I'm sure most of us are familiar with. There are just more time and diligence that we just have to spend together. But I think it's just the kind of the spirit, and I think Rob talked about it, the spirit of this is the beginning of a conversation of how we can spend less time on the, discussing the perception of the petty pilfering or whatever you want to call it, to let's kind of park that, and let's kind of move on and do bigger and better things.
What about you, Ian?
I think it's about solution neutrality, actually. If I had a brand that wasn't working and that needed some let's say some surgery to fix it, I think I would probably want my agency to be able to come to me and say, I don't think you should do anything with this brand at the moment. I think you should leave it. I think you should fix the brand issues. And when you fix the brand issues, I think you should move on and start advertising, whatever that form of advertising is. At the moment, I'm not entirely convinced I would ever get that advice, because I'm not sure that the way that our relationship is structured allows for us to get advice on spending nothing and the agency getting paid. And I think if there was a way we could structure that the agency got paid for the advice they gave and the results that they delivered, we would completely eradicate the issue of transparency.
But isn't that to say you almost get the agencies you deserve? So where does that onus lie? Who sets the agenda? Who takes responsibility? Because there is an issue of both transparency and accountability as well then.
I think both the agency and the client are accountable for the brand. I mean, obviously, ultimately, the client is accountable. The buck stops with the client. But the agency, if they are in the room advising, they are also accountable for the advice that they give. And that advice needs to be completely solution neutral. Sometimes we need to be told it's a bad idea to support this brand. You should really think about doing it in a completely different way. And the way that we have commercial relationships structured at the moment, I'm not sure delivers that result.
And do you think that's across the board? That's the kind of relationship that you have with your agency?
It's an interesting point you raise. It's the old Chinese doctor one, isn't it? You pay them when you're well, and you don't pay them when you're ill, so it's in their interest to keep you well. But you'd need to have a different remuneration model. But it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about remuneration models, and I think that every marketer is willing to, pay for success, and to some degree, we get, you get what you pay for, right? If you don't have a productive, profitable relationship, and I don't think that we're suggesting that we don't want our partners to be profitable. It's just how do we manage that, and when you have a lot of the different factors that just seem, we spend too much time kind of chasing around the trading desk and rebate part of the conversation. We just spend too much time with it. If it were more, open and out there, we'd be more productive.
But surely when there's a time when you're pushing for more innovation, better targeting and efficient buying, but then you're saying, do you not want to pay for it? I mean, nothing comes for free, surely. And do you not want your media agencies to make money?
I think we're being provoked as well by the Twitter feed a little bit here. We're pussyfooting around.
It's really interesting. It says we're the debate, but there's no one to debate with.
Ian, how did you tweet that from sitting here in this chair? I don't know.
Sorry, what was the question again?
The question was that you don't expect everything to come for free. Surely there are costs attached to if you are pushing your agencies to perform what you want them to do, and they need to put money back into innovation, into staff, into talent.
Absolutely, and I think there's always a role for. I think this, if you want to take it down to the base level, I would say there's 3 levels of remuneration going on at the moment. There's the base fee, the pay-per-performance, and then the rebates. My concern is always that the rebates make up a far larger proportion of the remunerations that the agencies take, and therefore there is no neutrality in the advice that I get. I have no issue paying an agency.
Right. I think the issue is most marketers won't object to paying an agency. Most, not all. Most don't object to paying an agency, but when you've got when you don't know, when it's not transparent of what all the elements are, that's when we start having problems.
Can I say, I'm actually quite surprised that here, top 3 global brands, which for most agencies would be termed as vanity clients, and for you to be saying that you don't get the kind of transparency that you want. Surely with the global clients, they would want to be as transparent.
I'm not saying we don't get the transparency required. We're debating an issue here about transparency across the industry, and I've identified a couple of the issues in the debate. I'm not saying that there's a particular issue for me.
I'm not talking about individuals, but what I'm saying is that for most global clients, that would not per se be an issue.
I mean, if you look at the WFA survey, I mean, there's obviously a difference in opinion of what people think about those issues.
So if you go to the red herring of only 8% of agencies, but 84% of advertisers see trading desks a threat. So what is the value proposition of trading desks, and what do they bring to the table? Are we talking about rules of engagement? Is that a buyer-seller dynamic?
I have one specific issue with trading desks. I think they're absolutely right. We're getting some Twitter feeds about procurement as well. Procurement guys use trading desks of a sort as well for doing their normal everyday procurement. I think the procurement, the trading desks are absolutely fine. The problem I've got at the moment with most, I think all, and if anyone out there has one that doesn't do this, I'd love to see them, is that they bid the price up. And if you're acting as an agency on my behalf, you should be working to drive my price down, not bid my price up. So everyone knows that I built my own trading desk of sorts. It's not really a trading desk; it's a bit of an Excel on steroids. But its objective was to bid the price down, not bid the price up. So I think that for me is the issue, which is why I think you have the dichotomy of the client saying, yes, we love trading desks. No, we don't like them bidding the price up. We're getting lots of stuff on procurement as well. Would you like me to?
Yes. Would you like to start? I was about to ask Tom the question about procurement. What is your view?
I think procurement gets a bad rap in some
When do you actually
occasions.
bring procurement guys in? Should we start with that?
All the time. They're continuously involved in the process. I mean, we talk about a sort of distinction between efficiency and effectiveness. So it's the procurement people's role to drive efficiency, and it's our role on the commercial side to drive effectiveness. But it's not always separate strands. We work together. But I think good procurement people can help the process work really well. I think bad procurement people can destroy relationships. So it depends what kind of procurement you have.
No, I mean, I think procurement brings a discipline and rigor into the side of the business that, you know, that marketers found they needed, and they're here to stay. And the challenge is, the opportunity is to bring those guys closer together. It doesn't have to be, it's not a polar opposite agendas. It's like, you know, how do you work together within the marketing organization? How do you take your purchasing guys who I work with on a daily basis? How do we work together to kind of drive the same initiative? Sorry.
I think there are good procurement people and bad procurement people. I also think there are good agency people and bad agency people, good clients and bad clients. I think if you have a good procurement person, they will understand the business. They will take counsel from the people they're working with. They will understand the business, and they will do a good job of procuring. And I don't see any reason for not involving procurement if that is the requirement within your client company.
If we were to talk about the use of the auditors as well, one of the criticisms that comes against auditors is they sometimes take a softer line towards agencies by adjusting their benchmarks to accommodate more and more discretionary premium. Obviously meaning that almost all clients enjoy superior value against whatever the norm might have been set. While some clients may be handing back bonus payments to agencies which scarcely deserve them. Do you have a view on that, Ben?
I mean, I think you introduced a couple sides of the auditing relationship, which I don't necessarily. I mean, I think third-party auditing is extremely valuable, extremely effective. We've found cases when I've been on both the agency side and the advertiser side. It's a good grounding point to begin the conversation about how do we measure success and how do we drive change. I mean, I don't have a perception that there's anything beyond, using auditing to ground us in what the situation is and how we can develop action plans moving forward to get into how they adjust pools and things like that. So that's not my experience, but I think they're valuable parts of the equation to help us get, a point in time to, move the discussion on.
What about you, Tom? I was just hoping that I think we've got some auditors in the audience, hoping for some questions from the audience, if we may.
You asked me about the general role of audit. I mean, I think auditors are essential. I think it's not like putting a private detective on to follow your wife around. The first time I suggested using an auditor to the marketing director, he said, I don't see how I can win here. Either they find nothing and I've wasted my money, or they find that my agency's been cheating me. So he saw it as a kind of lose-lose, but he was persuaded to go with it, and it worked really well. The auditor did it with sensitivity, found some money that actually the agency had been apparently trying to pay us back, but we couldn't raise a PO or whatever. So that we got a lot of money back from the process. They went through the contract, and they found that actually the agency was performing very well, but we got money back as well. So it can be a very productive experience.
What about you, Ian? Because one of the tweets here says about education. That's what needs to be done, especially when talking about procurement.
I think that's on the agenda, is education, and I wouldn't want to say blow the gaff on some of the stuff that Charlie and WFA have been talking about. Maybe I have already. But I wanted also to address the auditing issue. I have been asked in the past to take audit clauses out of contracts, and I have been offered incentives by agencies, not in an improper way, but from a contractual point of view, to take audit clauses out to disintermediate the auditors from the process. I have to question why I would even be offered that.
And is that an experience that you two have had as well?
No.
No.
One question, and it kind of bugs me. There was one tweet a little while ago about don't marketers mind paying agencies fair wages? And I think that the issue is, by and large, can't speak for everybody. By and large, there's no issue with paying for success, paying for great ideas and things like that. When there's uncertainty about I'm going to pay you X, and then you're going to earn Y through other channels. That's the uncertainty. It's not a matter of we're trying to avoid paying agencies. We just need to find a way to kind of get together to figure out the new model so that we're all, so that we see everything's on the table at the same time, not this is what's on the table, and then we don't know what else is happening on other streams. So that tweet kind of, it's not an issue of we're not the objective of the panel. I think most of the members of the WFA wouldn't say this is an exercise in like, oh, I got to try to find ways to, cut how I pay my agencies. It's let's find a way to so that we're all comfortable in fair compensation for the great ideas we get.
But part of it is it's not just about how to pay your agency well, it's how to recognize and evaluate the success they bring. Because once you can do that, you can then pay them very well if you can drive that success.
What you're talking about is actually the knowledge of every stream of revenue that they're making.
That's what we're talking about.
And I think that the flip side probably could be that when you are discussing costs and margins, with that being the core focus over value and performance, do you think there might be this sort of slippery slope that agencies found themselves during the days of the 15% discount? Because I think that there's a stat here that between, this is a UK only stat, between 2000 and 2009, 40% of UK budgets in Q4 were in pitch. So mad race to get an ever-increasing discount. Is that even sustainable? Ian.
I would answer that with maybe a little storytelling about a law that was put in place in France. I think it was 1997, 98, sometime like that, called Loi Sapin. And Loi Sapin was put in place not because agencies were making 15% or 20% or their agency revenue stream was under threat because it had fallen to 12 or 10 or 3 or they were doing it for 0, but because some of those buys were generating 90 and 95% incomes. That's why it was put in place, and Loi Sapin was put in place to deliver transparency in the marketplace. I think it's a mute discussion about how much the agencies earn. I think they do well. So.
One of the questions I can see is about discussing the value in having a planning agency place a buy for an advertiser through the holding company's trading desk. Ben, what are your views on that? Because they are obviously supposed to be ad network agnostic. Is that how?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I saw the question. I was trying to figure out. I mean, with perspective, trying to figure out what the question was. I mean, I think that we understand the dynamics of individual parts of the holding company and the value of rolling up the issues. I don't think that anybody has issues with one agency entity doing one piece of the work and then having the holding company buying conglomerate buy the work. I don't think there's any issues. I don't think there's any issues with that actual the mechanics of that. I'm not sure I understood the question. I don't know if you guys have a different view on that.
I saw it too. I don't know whether it implies that somehow it's too cozy a relationship or whatever, and that you're unlikely to get best value. I'm not sure what may be.
Love for a follow-up. I know we're not answering the question.
I think perhaps, I don't know if you are in the audience and you might like to elaborate a bit, but I would imagine perhaps what the question being asked here is that you have a holding company owns a trading desk. Mm-hmm. What is it to say that, say, a 24-year-old boy who's looking after your account is not told by the holding desk to go by the holding company to go to the trading desk owned by the holding company? What is to say that, as you said, that there isn't a cozy relationship? How comfortable or confident are you?
This whole thing comes back to trust, doesn't it? If you fundamentally do, if you've got to the stage of putting a private detective, to follow your wife, it's probably kind of beyond repair anyway, isn't it? So that you need to take some things at a level of trust. You use sensible precautions, have a good contract, have auditors who check that your contract is complied with, but you can't be, at some level you have to take it at face value.
I mean, that whole question, if you look at the WFA survey, that was the one of the two places where we're polar opposite ends of the spectrum of do trading desks impact impact decision making, and it was like that's the one place where it was like it's a
polarizing,
we're totally different. So I'd say on behalf of the members of the WFA who completed that survey, that's a concern. The industry again, marketers have that concern.
And is there a meeting point somehow? I mean, how do you propose to go forward? What is it that you think should be happening?
Can I answer the 24-year-old question? Yeah. I think there are a lot of very good 24-year-old buyers out there. So don't get me wrong. I think the issue on the holding company and the 24-year-old buyer is the 24-year-old buyer buying off a company who is buying off a company who is buying off a company who is buying off a holding company.
Absolutely.
And we don't see that. We don't have any visibility. We have some, but not enough visibility on that. The companies that exist in that chain don't come for free. There must be a cost involved in that. We know that's the way some markets work, where when you're trying to end source some media, you're buying off brokers or you're buying off aggregators. We know that it happens in digital. Again, it's an issue. It's an area which needs to be addressed. I think the Kellogg presentation yesterday, the Kellogg Comscore presentation yesterday was a very interesting one. I think probably more interesting would be what they didn't show rather than what they did show, but that's just my opinion. But I think that if there's a daisy chain of transactions going on, I want to know why.
What about you, Tom? Do you want to come in and talk about trading?
I think it comes back to the same. I think it comes back to the same circular piece. That for me, the transparency thing is related to trust, and you need to take all the sensible precautions, but at some stage you have to.
Surely, if you're talking about trading desks, again, talking about transparency, there must be different trading desks, different between approach, different between the philosophies of the holding companies, and not every model would be a markup model. I mean, are there,
Who wants that one?
Obviously, there's some hesitation there. Do you want to come in?
I mean, but businesses are in business to make money, aren't they? We're all in business to make money. We were having this discussion last night. We're lucky that we don't have the consumer putting auditors into our whole value chain and looking at where we make margins. And don't you think you're making a bit much on that particular brand and that particular outlet? It would be a very difficult world if we all faced what agencies have to face these days. They are businesses, they have to make money, and the more they globalize and become huge businesses and they vertically integrate, they have all sorts of sub-strands, the more their opportunity to make more and more cash. What we have to, in my opinion, what we have to do is we have to establish the value they deliver as opposed to continually look at the costs they face.
Understand the value better than we know it today.
So therefore, a related question, have you actually ever paid an agency a little extra for doing a better job?
I have.
Sure, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I take that?
Of course, yes.
I've never been paid more than I have been agreed to pay by my contractual obligations for doing a better job. What I would say is, no, I haven't paid more than I contractually agreed. What I would say is that one of the approaches that I try and make happen is that the guys on my business who are doing my business receive the bonuses that come as a result of delivering value on my businesses, and that it goes right the way down to the guys who are doing the work. That's one of the approaches that I try and work off.
Something that many agencies mentioned to me last night was, obviously what we're questioning here, because we're talking about transparency, is the rules of engagement. But what many agencies feel, many networks feel, that you place agencies into this one box here, and you don't have similar conversations or similar style of questioning with the other consultants like Bain's or McKinsey's. You don't certainly talk about a buyer-seller dynamic there. Would one of you like to?
Yeah, I mean, there is an issue. When I was in, we used to always struggle when I was an agency. Got to understand. Conflict. Conflict tolerance, I'll call it, used to be the biggest issue of you don't hold them to the same standard that you hold the consulting groups to. Consulting groups, generally speaking, are there for a one-off. They're not, they're there for a particular moment in time. They're answering a question. They're doing a longer-term project. Our agency partners are long-term partners who manage the largest piece of our, generally speaking, in almost every case, the largest, investment that we make in marketing, and it's a lot of money. So, we have to have standards. It's an ongoing, continual relationship. We have to continue to monitor. 'Cause it's just too much money to not have, not be able to, monitor.
Tom?
Yeah, I mean, with the agencies, consultants sell you advice largely, don't they? They sell you an informed point of view. Agencies do that as well, but they also buy huge lumps of cash in a particular item. So they have to bear different scrutiny. That goes with the territory.
Ian, do you feel the same then?
Can I answer another Twitter feed which just came up?
Of course you can.
I'm trying to do two conversations at once. The WFA, just for the herding cats comment, the WFA is a fantastic forum for clients to discuss these issues amongst themselves. It's not a cabal or anything like that, but it's a really, really good way of getting people together. There are not a lot of media people in client companies, so there's not a lot of opportunity within your own organization to discuss with people who understand your business. Being able to sit in a room with like-minded people who have the same issues and discuss it is enormously refreshing at times. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage any marketing organizations who are out there at the moment who have not come and joined the WFA to come and find me afterwards, and we will invite you along, because it's not about herding cats, it's about providing an environment for us to talk about these issues. Sorry, Sonny.
That's all right.
My favorite Twitter feed, I can't resist jumping on the one that said, we've all established that we can't trust agencies to give advice anymore. And I kind of miss when any of us said that we don't trust our agencies to provide advice anymore. So it was a couple tweets ago. If that's the point we've come, I mean, I think that's not even close to the point we've tried to get to. The tweet's gone, and hopefully the thought's gone. It's just, it's not a matter of trying to avoid paying for advice, and we cherish it, and we need it. It's a matter of just knowing everything that's going on.
Yeah, I think that's why...
The problem is it's also harder to measure the advice that the agencies give you. It's easy at some level to measure the goods they buy for you. So you tend to assess the bits that are easier to measure, which is not necessarily the right thing to do. We need to also find a way of measuring the advice.
Yeah.
But could I then actually ask, what is it that makes you keep up with all these practices that we've just talked about? I mean, what are you doing to ensure that there is a fair and an open relationship and a conversation?
I'm running a lot faster than I ever did to try and keep up with what's going on. It used to be, discussions on television and print and a little bit of outdoor. Now it's discussions on tons of different things. I would rather not have these discussions. I would rather just get on with the business of doing brand building, to be honest.
Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That it's hard enough to find out what works, isn't it? It's hard enough to identify what is working to build brands. That's where we need to focus. And the transparency thing for me is it's not a red herring. It's a very important piece, but it needs to be addressed and solved and parked so we can move on to build brands, because that's where both we and the agency should get success.
Right. And what have we done? I mean, I think we've had to bring in more stakeholders. We have to get, it's been, these issues have been the rise in procurement people, they've been the rise in auditors. I mean, so we have to tap into all those stakeholders. We have to bring more people into the mix, but it ultimately gets to what you guys talked about too. We want to spend more time, getting to, building brands and having the conversations that we all want to have.
I would like to invite some questions from the audience, if I may. Are there any hands in the audience? We do have one. Oh, it's Nick.
I think I must be the famous media auditor in the room you referred to, Sonoo. I guess one of the things that hasn't really been investigated as much in this debate as perhaps we might have expected is the media agency business model. And Ben did refer to this. He talked about the fact that holding company profits are going up at a time when clients are actually putting a squeeze on fees. Therefore, there's a kind of implicit assumption in there that each agencies are earning more money through other ways, and I guess that's probably true. But I for my sins, have got quite a lot of sympathy for the media agencies, because the margins that they make are an incredibly important part of the holding company margin. This is a matter of public record. It's not just my opinion. And when we listened to Salman talking earlier on about the need to innovate, the need to use more imagination, the need to do things differently with storytelling, that's absolutely right. But that takes a huge amount of resource. It means employing different kinds of people with different skills. to do a better and bigger job. And some of those new techniques and channels are not billings related. They take a lot of time and effort, but don't generate necessarily a lot of, if you like, fee and commission. So the media agencies are stuck in a slight bind, really, is that they have to make an awful lot of money to satisfy their shareholders, but they also have to invest in resources. And I guess part of the problem is there's too much money going into margin at the moment and not enough coming back out to fund the resources that the clients are asking for. And I think that's one issue which I'd like to hear the panel's views on. The second issue is about transparency in procurement. All procurement want to achieve is visibility. They're not looking to catch people out. They want to know what's going on. And I think that's perfectly fair. And it's only fair and reasonable that the agencies provide that level of visibility. Then they can agree on how much the agency remuneration should be. But it should be clear, it should be transparent, and it should be agreed in advance. And then, taking Ian's point, you can spend a lot more time talking about brand building than talking about transparency and whether rebates have been rebated or not.
I mean, if this were a compensation panel, I think that, I mean, personal opinion, I think that the commission model is a difficult model to work with in today's environment. And I don't know if we did a study of the WFA membership, I don't know what percent have a commission model versus a fee-based, versus a fee plus incentive model. And I think in today's day and age, more than ever, the commission-based model is really difficult to work in. Because you're right. I mean, Nick's right. It is more expensive to work in today's new environment. And I don't think any of us are saying we haven't. The opportunity is there. I mean, for agencies to seize that opportunity. And I don't think any of us have said we're not willing to pay more. It's just a matter of being able to, know what all the elements are before we make the choices. And not knowing all the elements restricts us from the ability to be able to, have that faith that gets back to the trust issue, to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what Nick says. I mean, there's a little ecosystem going on, a big ecosystem, isn't there? And the agencies need to find cash to maintain that system. And if they can't find cash from us, their customers, they'll find it from somewhere else. And I think it's our job to make sure that we pay them well enough to deliver exceptionally well. And the rest is a matter of a lot of complex detail, but that's the principle.
Yeah.
I think to answer Nick's question or comment about the requirement for more resource, I think that there is a pretty big disconnect at that point, and I'm not sure that I have a solution to solve it. But I can tell you that if you look at the three guys who were sitting here towards the end of the day yesterday, and they were all entrepreneurs, they will tell you that first of all, to get a slide into a deck of PowerPoint that is put in front of a client with their offering is absolutely gold dust to them. But it will not happen unless they have a relationship with the agency and contractual terms. And some of the entrepreneurs are very hard and fast, that they have their ideas and they want to hold on to the business model and make it theirs, which I have some sympathy for. If an entrepreneur cannot get face time with a client, the client will not buy. If the entrepreneur cannot do a deal with the agency, the entrepreneur will never get face time with the client. There is a disconnect there somewhere, and as I say, I'm just not sure how to fix that problem.
Are there any other questions? We do.
I just have a simple question. Why do most brands use media agencies instead of hiring in-house media experts?
Ian, do you want to?
Because we pay for a resource that works for us. That's why. It's very simple. There's a common resource there which allows us to spread our cost and get value out of the process.
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say we couldn't possibly afford to hire all the resource we need. There are too many different, in today's incredibly complex world, we couldn't possibly have that many people within the business.
Or the expertise and the skills.
Yeah, I mean, we want to leverage all the agency's expertise from all the work they're doing from each other. And again, one of the benefits of WFA, not to sell it, it's an opportunity for us to kind of all get together and kind of talk about issues. I mean, and we rely on the agencies to do the same thing of, provide us access to not just things that we're doing, but access to all the other things that they're doing for their other partners. So yeah, we definitely need their expertise in the marketplace.
I think we had another hand up there as well. Do you want to just holler? I'm sure we can hear you. I think there is a mic coming.
He started it, right?
Hi, Tracy DeGruce. I run a media agency in the UK. I guess it's been quite hard sitting in the audience listening to some of that, because I think, sadly, there's a lot of work to be done educating how media agencies make money. I think there's a lot of misinformation that's talked about. I think there's some valid concerns, but I just think we need to talk more. And I think, I'm very happy to say how we make money. Our margins are increasing because nearly half of the money we make isn't from planning and buying media anymore. And I think we've diversified our businesses into areas that our clients are looking for us to diversify into, whether that's analytics, whether it's content, whatever it may be, and they're paying for that because they are services that are valued. So I think that there's a lot that we need to just, open up and talk about. And agencies want to be transparent. We can do that. But I think actually what worries me more is that we're having a debate about, in my mind, the wrong thing. When we're talking about trust and transparency, actually what we should be talking about is effectiveness and whether what we do works. And I think the more that we can build remuneration models around your success is our success, transparency and trust disappears. Some of the questions and the challenges we're all talking about, I think, go. And I think we should be spending more time working together about how we drive effectiveness of what we do, not spending so much time on what's important, but it's efficiency. And I think getting the right prices of hygiene, doing stuff that works, is where we all should be spending time and effort.
Tom, would you like to?
I absolutely agree with that sentiment. This is a transparency discussion, therefore we're talking about transparency. But I absolutely agree with you.
Do one of you want to come in before I wrap up?
We did ask every agency who attended the festival if they wanted to join us up here and have the debate in an open forum.
Do you want to
No, I mean, all this,
everybody.
Everyone agrees with you. To say that it's not an issue, if you look at the WFA survey of, whether people think that things like trading desks and buying clubs and things like that are an issue, it is an issue to the general group, so therefore it's an issue. No one would disagree with you. We'd love to spend more time talking about, the cool, exciting things, but this is the transparency debate, so here we are.
I think what we have learned is battle lines between agencies and clients may be drawn over the issue at the minute, and perhaps some of the concerns that came from the questions are quite genuine. But perhaps what we can take away from this discussion is that relationship has to go beyond numbers onto trust and to long-term relationships and partnerships. And it's clients, agencies, and vendors, all of who will have to take responsibility collectively. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening, and thank you for all your tweets, and a big round of applause for the panelists here. Thank you, everyone.